Anthony Joshua still intends to return to the ring this year, despite his recent elbow surgery. Eddie Hearn has confirmed. Eddie Hearn says this: he'll only fight once this year. He'll be good to go in the middle of September, and by then we will know for sure if Fury is going to return or not. But AJ's opponent will also depend on what happens in Usyk versus Dubois. I like our spot. If Wilder comes back and looks sensational, we'll probably start talking about it again. I don't rule it out. Now, to get further details, Anthony Joshua is in talks for a 2-fight Riyadh season deal. Last night, it was reported it was going to be a 3-fight deal. Eddie Hearn comes down and clarifies it's going to be a 2-fight deal for Anthony Joshua's Riyadh season. That being said, some of the names being discussed for that deal is Dillian White, Jared Anderson. I'll give my thoughts in a minute. Usyk Dubois winner, Tyson Fury, and a possible rematch behind that as possible opponents for that deal. AJ is likely to return in the final quarter of 2025 or early 2026. All right. Let me give you guys my thoughts on Anthony Joshua and what's going to happen next. The last we saw of Anthony Joshua was, before we know it, in just about a couple months from now, it'll be at a year since he returned to the ring. Anthony Joshua went into that fight. He had rebuilt himself up, gets out there, and gets manhandled by Daniel Dubois. Obviously, when you get caught by a heavyweight, especially a guy like Daniel Dubois, it kind of throws out your whole game plan. That fight was over from the get-go when that got happening. AJ did have that moment where he did. I don't want to. He kind of hurt him. Obviously, I'd say more stunned. Daniel Dubois is probably the proper word there. Until Daniel Dubois put the final touches and KO'd Anthony Joshua in that fight. All right, we get to this position now where Anthony Joshua has not fought in what is going to be at least a year when it ends up coming to fruition when he returns to the ring, which leaves a lot of questions now for what's next for Anthony Joshua. Because when he got KO'd, the question already was, is Anthony Joshua going to retire? Is he going to try to go for world championships? There's a lot of questions for us. Well, at this point in time, Anthony Joshua will be at least 1 year older when he returns to the ring. Not the best of things, especially for a guy that is at his best, is when he's consistent and active, as is for most boxers. Therefore, Anthony Joshua going after this 2-fight deal makes me think a few different things. I'm going to outline my plans for Anthony Joshua. If I were to hypothetically be a matchmaker right now, and I look at what's on the table, what makes sense from what reports we have, I'm going to give you guys what I believe Anthony Joshua will be doing when he returns on this Riyadh season 2-fight deal. Let's get right to it. First and foremost, all plans revolve around the Tyson Fury fight. When you look at boxing, and you look at factoring the domestic appeal, you look at the branding, you look at the name, the image, all the different components, Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury at Wembley Stadium is probably, if not the biggest fight to make in boxing currently. Sure, you can debate it with a couple other fights, but it's right in that mix. And that's why I firmly believe that the number one fight on that Riyadh season deal is going to simply be Anthony Joshua fighting Tyson Fury at Wembley Stadium. I've said that time and time again. That has to be number one. So the fight number one on that deal will be Anthony Joshua, Tyson Fury. I don't see any other way around that. Fury is not going to stay retired. He's done this before. He is going to be announcing his return in the near future, and we're going to get an announcement that Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua will be fighting at Wembley Stadium by the end of this year, early 2026. All right? That's number one. That's what I believe will happen. I'd be shocked if that's not the case. That's the first fight on that deal. So then you ask the question then that really gets interesting. All right, 2-fight deal. What's the second fight plan for that deal? Here's my ideas on that plan. I believe that if that fight with Tyson Fury results in a controversial fight, or it results in a chance where, it's a very, very close competitive fight, I believe the second fight on that deal will be the rematch. The reason I believe that is it's going to be putting themselves in a position very similar to Chris Eubank Jr. and Conor Benn. And when that's the situation at hand, you're going to have too much of a financial gain to possibly lose out on to not make that be the rematch. I think that's the fight that's going to happen. Both these guys are past the prime. Both these guys are pretty much all but removed from world title contention. The only reason I say pretty much is because if Usyk retires, you have 4 belts open up. Could you get lucky with the right fight and go and make yourself a world champion? Possibly. It's not out of the question, but I don't think either one's going to position themselves to be in that situation going forward. So I believe that, yes, if that fight is controversial or a very competitive, high-action fight where there's a lot of appeal for a rematch, the rematch will simply overrule any other fight and become the second fight on that 2-fight deal. Let's look at the other options. If Anthony Joshua were to come out and be a big fight where he wins in a devastating fashion, I'm saying he KOs Tyson Fury. Something that's very, very difficult to do. We have not seen that really. So if that happens for Anthony Joshua, that's something that I believe would come to fruition, and he would set himself up for a fight that, while I'm not a favorite for it, I don't like it. Usyk has said that before, that if he fights and he defeats Daniel Dubois, he would be interested and want to fight the winner of AJ and Tyson Fury. Because Usyk said that, I have to throw that in there. If AJ has a devastating fight where he KOs Tyson Fury, somehow does that, I believe that there would be an opportunity for him to go fight the winner of Usyk and Dubois, specifically Usyk. And for Dubois' standpoint, once again, I'm not a favorite of this. I think Joseph Parker deserves that fight. I would be upset if Joseph Parker does not get that fight. But because of the way that the money and what AJ brings in, with Riyadh season being involved, and with what Usyk said, and the fact that Frank Warren obviously has already talked about the fact that there was a rematch deal for the AJ fight, I could see that being a case where we do see AJ, if he does win in devastating fashion, Tyson Fury, if he wins that, that would be on the table. If he also wins that fight in the rematch against either Usyk or Dubois not on the table, I could see them going out there and pursuing Caballero or Joseph Parker. Those would be two of the fights that I could see happening, and I'd not be against that at all. If AJ were to lose that fight, I have two fights that I think make sense for his final deal on that Riyadh season deal, and at that point in time, it could be very well moving on. And here's what they are. Deontay Wilder or F.A. Jogba in Nigeria. Those are the two options I have him if he loses that fight in Tyson Fury for the second fight on that Riyadh season deal. Let me explain those. Deontay Wilder is obviously, you could easily sell that fight, easily promote that fight. Casuals will be all over that fight. You're talking about two of the biggest names of this past generation in the heavyweight division. Especially if Deontay Wilder goes down, what he should do is have a devastating KO here in a couple weeks now. I think it's June 28th, July 20th, whatever it is. And Deontay Wilder has a big performance there. You could see that be something that's easily promoted. And you have Anthony Joshua, Deontay Wilder. While it's way past his prime, you could see that fight end up happening. Or you see AJ pretty much wrap up his career back in Nigeria, fighting a fellow Nigerian, F.A. Jogba. That would be a cool situation for him. I think that'd be a great way to ride off from the sunset, doing it in the country that you like to represent. In Nigeria, fighting a fellow Nigerian would be a massive, massive fight card in Africa. I could see that fight being made and going to having come to fruition. So those are three routes I have set for this 2-fight deal with Anthony Joshua was discussing with Riyadh season. To recap it, Anthony Joshua will be fighting Tyson Fury, in my opinion, as the first fight. And secondly, you will either have a rematch with Tyson Fury, or you'll be having him go for a world title shot against Usyk Dubois or Caballero or Joseph Parker. And if he loses the fight, Deontay Wilder and F.A. Jogba are on the table. That's why I see how Anthony Joshua finishes up his Riyadh season deal he's negotiating and possibly even finishes up his boxing career.